there were obvious signs that something was going on. The first sign I always knew when he relapsed was I couldn't get a hold of him. You know, we talked to each other during the day today 5 times while I'm at work. You know, just checking in on things or on my lunch break or just to say I love you. Send a funny TikTok or something. And back in those days when he would relapse, I wasn't getting any phone calls back. I wasn't getting any text messages back. And I think out of all the emotions and everything that I felt, which was, you know, the fear and anxiety and stress, sadness, was the biggest resentment, I think, was feeling of abandonment and being alone. Because there were times that obviously it would be hours, and as things progressed, it would be a day or two, and I didn't know where he was. He wasn't calling me back, texting me back. We'd had 2 homes. You know, back in the day, we were in the city, and then we had our Wisconsin house. So yeah, the feeling of being alone and abandoned and just rejected, I guess. He told me once when I remember walking into the bathroom, and he said, I have something to tell you, and I feel like I've been cheating on you. And he said, I'm drinking again.
It got to the point where I'd have to get up in the middle of the night because I'd wake up, the alcohol clock would wake you up and tell you it's time for a drink. And if you don't, you're going to start detoxing. You're going to get very sick, and you're going to throw up, and you're going to shake and possibly have seizures, and it's bad. So I couldn't take it, and I just went to my wife and I said, I'm an alcoholic. I'm drinking 24 hours a day. I don't want to do this anymore. I want off this thing. And she said, I know. I've known for a long time, and I don't know why she didn't leave me. She should have left me a long time ago and found someone great. But she's with me, and she's a trooper, and I love her dearly. I've been with her almost 37 years now, and she's the one that saved my life. I didn't want to live anymore.
He was never up for going in for treatment. He was never, back then, into going to AA meetings. He's like, oh, they're so super religious. That's not me, that's not who I am, but never really looked at other options. So he was an untreated alcoholic because he was getting no treatment, no one to talk to that had been through what he'd been through. So what comes with this is a wife who enables, who controls, who tries to fix him and fix things, who has to lie to family and friends and cover up for every holiday that he missed or event that he didn't go to because he was at home feeding his disease. And he knew he couldn't be without alcohol for a certain amount of time. I remember even asking the boys, we were going to Thanksgiving, I think to his brother's house. And I said, what was the reason we said that Dad couldn't be here? Was it his back? Was it diverticulitis? Like, there was always a couple things that were our go-to made up fake injuries and illnesses to cover for him. And he begged me, please don't tell my family, please don't tell my family. He was just so ashamed. And I didn't tell my family, he begged me. He just wanted to keep it private. It was his problem, but it was really our problem. I guess the insanity part, to me, I became aware of me going crazy and doing crazy things, really. And it was, I don't know if he remembers how many relapses that he really had in that like 10, 11, 12 years. I think it was at least 5 trips to the ER for detox. We even detoxed at home once, which was the dumbest thing we could have tried to do. So that's another part of it, the lies, the stories. So many lies I couldn't even keep them straight. And when he would get sober in between the relapse, he was always very apologetic. I'm so sorry, you deserve better, you deserve someone else, I hate myself. And my response is, I love you and we're gonna fix it. We're gonna get you help, we're gonna fix you. We, meaning me, I wanted to control and fix him because I wanted my life back to the way it was. I didn't want my boys to suffer the way that they had been going through. And one summer I finally had just had it, and I finally said, if you don't go to this outpatient rehab at Hazleton for the whole 3 months, I'm leaving. I don't think in my heart and in my mind, emotionally, I was prepared to actually do that, but I just wanted to scare him into please trying to get help. Ultimatums don't work. Begging, pleading, crying, none of that works to get someone to go into rehab. And I learned that. I learned that the hard way a few different times. So he did all 3 months, completed it. And I remember sitting in his counselor's office on his last day, and the 3 of us met. And his attitude was that he didn't belong there. He said, I still have my job. I still have my family, my friends, my wife. I haven't had a DUI. And he put himself on a pedestal because those things were yet to come for him. He said, these guys got, car damage and DUIs, and their wives left them. They're divorced. They've been arrested and in jail. All that was yet to come. And it came pretty soon after that, within a couple of years. The progressiveness and the consequences started to get more serious and scary.
It's a rough ride. This is a picture of me on my last drink. And I ended up at the bottom of the river. Drunk, hit my head on my little boat by myself, and went in the water. I got fished out and ended up in the hospital, like you see. That's the last time I ever had a drink. And there was plenty of mishaps before that, as expected with an alcoholic.
And hopeless. I think that would be the best word if I were to describe how I felt. I would find all his hidden stash liquor bottles when he was claiming he was not drinking, but I knew he was. And I would search the house, and I would find 8, 9 bottles of vodka stashed all over the place. Garage, basement, laundry room, outside patio, in planters. I mean, he got pretty creative trying to have somewhere at all points in time that he could get a drink so he wouldn't go into the detox again. And I was such a bitch. I took every one of those bottles and lined them all up on the kitchen island and left him a note and said, so you're not drinking, huh? So I put myself on a pedestal and made him feel even shittier about himself. was not a proud moment when I look back at it now. And through Al-Anon, I came a long way, and I'll explain that later. But and what they said, his sponsor had back then said, that's the trajectory, is the alcoholism gets to be where, you know, you lose your job, friends, family, you start injuring yourself or others, you end up in the hospital, you end up arrested or in jail, and the last stop is the morgue. And that was it. That was where we were headed. The last couple months before he finally got sober were the worst. I'd probably say it was about 4 or 5 months that I didn't know who my husband was anymore. He'd gotten more angry. He never hurt me. He never physically did anything. A lot of harsh words, a lot of mean things said, a lot of names called when I tried to control him. And I didn't want to feel like the mother telling him what to do. I didn't want to be the nurse cleaning his wounds when he would hurt himself. I wanted to be his wife. And that our relationship changed. I actually remember I had a light bulb moment back in about 2017, 18, when I really saw things starting to kind of crumble under us. And I was kind of hopeless that there would ever be that moment of him really saying, I'm going to go get help and I'm really going to do it. I didn't see it. And I thought to myself, financially, I'm going to have to take care of myself one day. I have to learn how to really financially become independent. So the only positive at that moment is the uncertainty that living with an active alcoholic gave me power to make decisions. And I loved interior design. I had a degree in fashion merchandising and business and French. Did a lot of design jobs on the side, worked in the restaurants. And I knew at that moment I was going to get a certification in interior design. And that was going to be what I was going to fall back on one day, because I knew I needed to. It got to the point where I did finally pull family in. I told his family, and I went to his oldest brother and I said, please, can you come to the house? Can you please talk to Patrick? He's in really bad shape. And that didn't work. Someone that he really loved and admired, that didn't matter. I remember always looking out the driveway window, waiting for him to drive back home, not knowing where he'd been. Like I said, sometimes it was hours to a day or two. And I wanted to call the police a lot. And I probably should have in hindsight. And I just remember so many countless nights. Like if I had to count how many nights or days I waited and not knowing if he was dead or alive on a country road in Wisconsin, in a ditch. Is he in jail? Is he dead? Did he hit something or somebody? Just living with that, it was just agonizing. I remember I had a call once. I think I was in the city at that point. He was in Wisconsin. It was on day 2, and I was ready to jump in the car and drive to Wisconsin from the city. And I finally called a friend of ours, and I said, can you please go over to the house? He had a key to our house. Can you please go check on Patrick? And an hour later, he said, he's fine. He's just drunk and asleep on the couch. And I think that's where like the anger really started to build up in me. Because where did I go in our relationship and our marriage? I was just brushed to the side. for vodka.